All right, my friends, in this video, I want to go over the domain of mastery. Now, adding on top of what was already written in the curriculum, this is how we structure it. The main purpose of the domain of mastery is to bring clarity to the topics that you want to write. Now, this is optional, but it's good to have it written down and something that you can come back to when you either lack content ideas, you need inspiration, you need someone to study, you need content to research. And so with this, our pillars are one, the money-making interest, two, the one that excites you, and three, the developmental interest. So I just want to go over how to structure these. This is a process of iteration, and I do not expect you to have all of these done all at once. Now, if you've ever taken a social media course or a branding course or something else, you understand that people have content pillars. Now, what that is it's pretty much a pyramid where it's like, I talk about this thing, and this thing, and those break down into subtopics, and then those break down into content ideas, right? So that's kind of what we're doing here. But content pillars, it just doesn't sound right to me. I like domain of mastery because it implies that you are trying to learn and understand through your writing, and you are trying to help others learn and understand through that writing as well. So the first and arguably one of the most important things inside the domain of mastery and for learning in general is to have mentors, is to have a group of people, whether it be social media accounts, authors, your favorite podcasters, something like that, where you can generate ideas from and emulate. Now with writing, what are you trying to emulate? One, you're studying how they write and why it's so impactful. Two, you may want to emulate their tone in your writing. I like how Alan Watts writes and speaks. He's not, how would I put it? He's not the most technical writer by any means, but he is very good at getting his point across and making sense in a way that is very unique. And that's what I like about him. And it has inspired my writing quite a bit. If you want to learn anything, you emulate, right? That's what we do as humans. Since we were born, we emulated and imitated our parents to learn how to operate within the world. If we want to learn writing, and our parents didn't show us physically how to write, or they didn't write and we didn't catch on to what they were doing, then we need to take it on ourselves to study other people, dissect how they are writing, and understand it on a deeper level and practice on our own. So for your mentors, this should come easy if you're on social media and you are consuming value-based content. But for the first pillar, the one that makes money in this case is going to be business for me, right? Or the digital economy is what I have coined it after many years of trying to come up with a unique name that kind of makes me stand out. That's a lesson in itself, is that there's a business guy, but if I call it the digital economy, that gives me a lot of leverage to write about business in a specific way. And if people were to say, visit my profile or tell what I write about, I've created a category for myself to write under. Now, this isn't going to come automatically. It actually takes some time and experience to finally come up with that right wording of what you actually talk about. But for now, we'll keep it as business, and let's say specifically online business, right? Now, the topics associated with that, let's change one to, let's say, audience building. Let's change this to digital marketing, and we'll leave it at that for now. And then the second one, for me, this kind of crosses over to the third one, which is the developmental interest, right? Because this excites me. Human potential in general excites me. So whether it be psychology, spirituality, performance, we can make the third one health because it's a tad bit different. But once you fill this out, here's, I guess, a connection to make for you is when you fill all of this out with time, you don't have to do it all at once, but once you fill all of it out, start to try and make connections when you break it down into subtopics and see how things cross over. Because I could talk about health and spirituality all day long and how spirituality plays a role in mental health, and I could write a ton about that, right? Especially the principles, because in the domain of mastery, you have to understand the basics, the fundamentals, and I could write the basics of mental health being, let's say, as topic 1 for this, mindfulness, right? So we'll start here just so this doesn't drag on. I would encourage you both to take time with this. Think about it. Give yourself 2-3 days to think about the topics that you want to write about and learn more about. That's what this is about, is learning more about things and distilling what seems like basic information to you to the people who have not broken into these interest areas yet. Okay? So let's start with mentors after we've written some of these down. So mentors in online business that I follow would be Jose Rosado on Twitter. If you don't follow him, great stuff on online business. I would say Jack Butcher. I really like his unique perspectives on business itself. Let's say Tej Dosa, also on Twitter, and he's like a mixture of spirituality and online business, right? He's bridging the gap between those two things. I could come up with a lot more. Let's say Daniel Vassallo and Justin Welsh, all good people that talk about business occasionally, right? Or at least they teach about business. Now, the other thing, this comes with time. As I'm scrolling the timeline, I want to scroll intentionally. I want to look for tweets that catch my attention and make me think, damn, I wish I wrote that. And so now when you actually see these tweets, you can take note of them, which we'll come back to in a bit, but you can write them down in the queue or just paste them in there and come back to them later. Or you can go straight into this on your phone in the Notion app and paste the link to the tweet or screenshot it there. So let me go over here really quick and just grab one of my own tweets. You won't see this, but let's say, so I'm right here on my profile, right? So I'll take this one, I'll copy the link, and then what I can do here is delete this, paste it, embed tweet, and now it shows up. And so not only do I have a potential topic to write about and a unique perspective that I can make my own, and practice writing in this, I can practice writing in this like format, right? Because structure is very important for leading people down the page, as we will learn. Don't want to get too ahead of ourselves yet, but paste whatever tweets you can in here, because it's just super important to have inspiration and looking at good writing so that you get used to it, and eventually you can practice and it just becomes second nature to you. And at the end of it, you don't know why you're you don't know why you're texting your best friend and you're adding line breaks between them and you're numbering things. Like if you're arguing with someone and you're like, well, you did one of two things wrong. 1, 2, it's funny how much this actually transfers into your everyday life. Once you notice it, you'll be structuring text like tweets, and it's really interesting. But it's aside from the point. For this, just note tweets from these people and study them daily. If you have to create a list on Twitter, which is right here, you can add them to a list and you can study the list daily, however you want to do it. But let's look at like authors, right? I had a list of 5 members. These aren't really authors, but James Clear, Mark Manson, Joe Dispenza. If I want inspiration from them, then I can go and read through the list and study their tweets, right? Easy way to do it. Easy way to get yourself in the mode of short form writing thinking, right? Thinking in short form. So do that for each one of these. And if you don't have any ideas yet, it's okay. The reason we're doing this is to kind of have it in your awareness. So when you come across, let's say, a new account and you're like, oh, that'd be the perfect fit, you make that connection, you get that excitement, that dopamine from making that connection, because now you have something to apply it to. Then you come in here and you add those mentors to the list. Now, let's look at one of these topics. So I'll go into, let's do mindfulness. So subtopics. Now, this is what we can write content on, right? These can be content ideas. So mindfulness can break down into emotional management and regulation Stress management. I guess mental health, that's kind of general, but you get the point. Stress management, not caring what people think, and we'll leave it at that, right? And so these can come, and these can be either a starting point for your first few articles. They can be something, something that starts your research for, let's say, a tweet, right? You could type one of these into Tweet Hunter. You could type it into Medium, into YouTube, and start getting inspiration for content ideas. You could read a book on emotional management. You could look up the basics of stress management and spin them into your own and do things of that nature. So now, real world problems. And I don't want this video to drag on too long, especially since we haven't even gotten close to diving into this course yet. But real world problems. All writing, all storytelling, all communication, persuasive and high impact communication start with a problem. I was reading The Science of Storytelling by Will Storr, and he mentioned like what catches people's attention and what is the start of a good story. Keep in mind that the human mind makes sense of things via stories. That's how we make sense of things, right? If I say something to you, you assume the context from everything around. You tell yourself a story of what I'm saying so you can make sense of it. Now, in The Science of Storytelling, he read the start of a book, and it said something along the lines of, he woke up and the bed next to him was cold, or the spot next to him on the bed was cold. And so what does that make the reader think, right? That's a problem, or it's an implied problem, or it implies that something is wrong, right? That's how every piece of good writing starts. And that's how would I put it? You'll notice this connection when you study persuasive writing frameworks, or really anything writing or marketing too, is all around problems. It all starts with a problem because that's what people relate to the most. And I gotta sneeze. Excuse me for being unprofessional. But what that does is it opens a curiosity loop in your brain, right? So it makes you think, it makes the reader think, what's next? Like, okay, why is the bed cold? And it keeps them reading. They want to figure it out, right? So they're not giving everything away up front. They're not giving the entire story away up front, or the climax of the story. They're starting off with a problem. They're giving some context behind it. They're painting a picture of the scene. And then eventually they get to, why was the bed cold, right? And then that should be climactic. So real world problems that mindfulness can solve. I would say everyday suffering. It's like how you react to minor inconveniences. It goes into the subtopics as well. So stress. What else does mindfulness help with? Just general quality of life, right? Now you can use these as firepower to start your newsletter, like at the start, right? Because all good writing starts with a problem. You could turn these into individual tweet topics, which we'll learn how to do later. But all of this is something we're going to come back to, right? And as I mentioned, the best way to go through this course is to go through the entire thing, fill these out, take notes, and then come through it again and start to implement and make those connections a second time when it's fresh in your brain and when you've seen the big picture and can make those connections, right? So that is it for now. Take some time, go through this, and as you go through the course, hopefully it'll give you more ideas on how to structure this, and we will learn exactly what we are going to turn all of this into in future sections. So thank you for watching. I'll talk to you soon.